Hello, everybody. Peter here with another segment of Autopilot Dealer Solutions Daily Drive. Remember that we have these segments every Tuesday and Wednesday. They usually take anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes long. And you know what? Let's go ahead and let's get started with our new segment. So, today we're going to be focusing on investing in yourself. And we're going to do that through training. Now, we've been spending the last week and a half focusing on our attitude and mindset and some of the things that we got to do to make sure that we got our head right. We've also been focusing on setting up our goals and creating the purpose, the reason why we do what we do. And then just recently, we were talking about creating a game plan. And inside that game plan, we talked about making sure that we set time for ourselves to train. Training is a very important aspect of what we do. The more access we have to strong and valid information, and then when you mix that information with practice, with repetition, with consistency, with focus, with commitment, and you start creating that consistency through repetition, suddenly you start changing. So let's get into a little bit of the importance of training and the things that we need to focus on. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the three things that are important when it comes to training. First things first, we need to make sure that we train every single day. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to give you a guide. We're going to show you a structured plan of how to train on a daily basis. Also, when you're training, you want to make sure that you are committed and that you're focused. You want to make sure that you have your blinders on and that you're focused when you are putting that time and effort into the training. Also, once you finish absorbing that information and that knowledge, you want to make sure that you start putting it into action. All right? And that's where you start to create where that saying knowledge is power. No, knowledge is power when you put action into it. So you want to make sure that once you absorb that information, that you start putting it to practice by committing yourself and executing it on a daily basis. All right, so first things first, we talked about training every day. And this is something that we need to put in our game plan and we need to structure it at least twice a day. You got to find a time during your day where you are training twice a day. It could be during your free time, all right? Whenever you're not with a customer or whenever you're not making your outbound phone calls or you're not walking your inventory or you're not spending time in the service lane, what you want to do is find some free time and combine it of 30-minute sessions, all right? If you're putting 30-minute sessions, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to be able to absorb good information, and at the same time, it won't become boring for you. It will be short and sweet, and at the same time, you'll be able to capture and absorb that information, and then you'll be able to start putting it into practice. Now remember, practice makes perfect. And I'll share with you something else. Not only does practice makes perfect, but perfect practice makes permanent. Next, you want to make sure that you grab what you just learned and you start putting it into motion. You start utilizing it and putting it into practice on a daily basis using maximize effort and execution. When you mix that with repetition, that's when suddenly what you have trained on starts becoming permanent. It becomes second nature. It becomes a part of you. And then at the same time, as you're putting it into practice, start measuring the level of success. Is it making a difference? Is what you are doing helping you? What do you need to change? So measure the level of success, and then what you need to do is you need to make sure that you look at it, and if you need to make any changes to your training, maybe train a little bit more on it, or maybe you could start focusing on something else because you're starting to become really good at it. You start to measure the level of success, and then you make any adjustments necessary moving forward. Okay, so now we're getting ready to start training. We're ready now to start absorbing this information to make sure that later we could start putting into practice. But we need to make sure that we obtain the information first. So we want to make sure that we're focused. We want to make sure that we have our blinders on. Forget about your surroundings. Right now is your time, and it's your one-on-one time between you and that training session, whether it's audio, whether it's video, whether it's through the book. It doesn't matter. You want to make sure that you're focused and that you have your blinders on, and it's just you in that training session. Also, you want to make sure the reason why you want to make sure that you're focused and you have your blinders on, because that's how you're going to be able to intake the information, and then through repetition and practice, you're going to start having the opportunity of retention of the information, and you're going to be able to obtain that information in your system. Okay? And the way you're going to do that is through repetition, through consistency through repetition, and also through practice, which again, practice makes perfect, but also perfect practice makes permanent. So be focused, have your blinders on, make sure that you intake the information, and through consistency, through repetition, and through practice, you're going to be able to create retention of the information. You'll be able to obtain the information. And also, make sure that you invest in yourself and you cash out the return. That's the whole thing when training. The more time and focus and effort that you invest into your training, the more you're going to be able to cash out at the end. Okay, the more you invest in yourself, the better the cash out. Remember that. The more you invest in yourself, the better the cash out. So make sure that you're focused. Blinders on, create consistency through repetition, make sure that you put it into practice. You'll be able to intake that information, and through practice, you'll be able to create retention. Okay? And again, the more you invest in yourself, the bigger the cash out at the end of the day. All right, so now we're going to grab what we trained on. We're going to grab all this information that we absorbed and that we've been practicing on, and we're going to start now putting it into real life situations. Okay, we're going to start implementing it with our customers on a daily basis. So pretty much right now it's showtime. So again, your attitude and mindset has to be in check. You got to make sure that you're focused. You got to make sure that you're committed. You got to make sure that you are ready to go. Now what you're going to start doing is you got to start preaching what you practice. So everything that you've been practicing, all this knowledge that you've been obtaining and you've been practicing and role playing, you need to start preaching it. You need to start making it a part of you. It has to be part of your lingo. Okay? Now here's the other thing. Listen, you're going to make mistakes. This is real life. You know, what you learn in a book and what you learn in practice does not always work out when it comes to real life situations. You got to remember the customer was not there with you when you were role playing and practicing. Okay? The customer has no idea what you've been doing. So they're just going to go in the direction that they feel they need to go. So there's going to be obstacles. Hey, listen, don't look at them as obstacles, but look at them as opportunities. Opportunities to get better. The best thing for you is sometimes when you run into those things, take a step back and then just move forward. All right, remember, these are additional things that we're trying to implement into our, daily repertoire. All right? So these are things that are going to take time. Sometimes it's going to be natural and it's just going to naturally happen. Why? Because, you're able just to go with the flow, but it's not like that for everybody. So listen, don't look at obstacles as a bad thing. Just look at them as an opportunity to get better. And then at the end of your deal or at the end of the day, you need to sit down and measure the success. Take a look at the areas that you were successful with when it came to putting this information into play, and then take a look at the areas where you need to get better. You want to continue to focus on those areas. That's the way the second, third, fourth time around when you're with a customer, you put more of it into practice in real life situations and things just start to click. And then once you have that and you've created consistency through repetition, everything just starts to fall into place. All right, so let's take a look at the three keys to success. All right, we want to make sure that we train on a daily basis. We want to make sure that we train at least in 30-minute segments and we train twice a day, especially during our free time. So if you have some free time, make sure that you utilize that to train on a daily basis. Also, while you're training, you want to make sure that you are focused. You want to make sure you have your blinders on. The reason why you want to make sure that you intake and you absorb that information, and then through the consistency of repetition and practice, you will be able to obtain the information. You'll be creating retention of the information. And remember what we talked about. The more you invest in yourself, the bigger the payout will be at the end. And then you want to commit and you want to execute. All right? You want to make sure that what you're learning, you put it into practice. And listen, remember, you're gonna make mistakes. It's just it's just human nature. You're trying something new and you're trying to add something new into your daily repertoire. So you're gonna make mistakes. Don't look at these obstacles as a bad thing. Look at them as an opportunity to get better. And then what you do is you measure the results and the areas where you need to focus on, you go back into the drawing board and you continue to obtain the information and continue to role play and practice it and then continue to put it into live situations. And I also want to leave you with this phrase. I love this phrase and I want you to remember it, especially when it pertains to training. Practice makes perfect, but also perfect practice makes permanent. Always keep that in mind. Yes, practice creates perfection, but now when you're practicing it the perfect way, it starts to become permanent and it starts becoming second nature. It becomes a natural part of you. And with that said, we're at the end of another session here, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this information. And remember, we're going to be doing this every Tuesday and every Wednesday. And again, thank you so much for joining us. This is my name is Peter, and this is Autopilot Dealer Solutions Daily Drive. And we'll see you for the next segment. You take care, guys. Bye.